All right, today we're going to tear down some of the biggest and most common myths about Africa. We're going to deconstruct the old ideas and explore a continent that is incredibly complex, with a rich history and, believe it or not, some amazing innovation. So, let's dive right in.
So let's start with something that seems super simple. Just how big is Africa? Now, the answer might actually shock you. You know those maps we all grew up with in school, the Mercator projection? Well, it turns out they seriously distort the size of continents, and Africa gets the worst of it, making it look way, way smaller than it actually is.
I mean, to really get a sense of its true scale, think about this. You could take a whole bunch of the world's largest countries, cram them all inside the continent of Africa, and you'd still have room left over.
Okay, get ready for this list. We're talking about the United States, China, India, all of Europe, Japan, and Mexico. All of them. They all fit. Now, this isn't just a cool piece of geographic trivia, right? It's really the starting point for understanding how deep the misconceptions about this vast and diverse continent really go.
So you see how the map is kind of lying to us about the size? Well, the way we talk about Africa, as if it's one single monolithic place, that's an even bigger distortion. It's a continent, not a country. And that distinction, that changes everything.
Yeah, we look at a map today and we see 55 countries. But you have to realize, that's a super recent picture. Before the colonial era, Africa was this incredible, rich tapestry of over 2,000 distinct nations and kingdoms. 2,000! Each with its own unique history and culture. Let that sink in.
And that right there just blows up one of the most damaging myths out there. This whole idea of a dark continent that had no real history before Europeans showed up. No. The reality is the complete opposite. Pre-colonial Africa was home to powerful, sophisticated kingdoms with long, well-established traditions of diplomacy and governance.
I mean, just take a look at the Kanem-Borno Empire. It was founded way back in the 8th century. By the 11th century, they were already setting up diplomatic relationships with North Africa. Fast forward to the 15th century, and they're in communication with the Ottoman Empire. This was no isolated kingdom. This was a major global player for over 1,000 years.
Or how about the Sokoto Caliphate from the 19th century? We're talking about a highly centralized state with a complex legal system, a strong central government, and really skilled diplomats. Honestly, it was one of the most politically advanced societies of its time anywhere in the world.
And these pre-colonial states, they used a whole range of diplomatic tools, treaties, emissaries, arbitration, you name it. The point is, these weren't some kind of primitive version of European methods. These were sophisticated and effective systems of international relations that grew and developed right alongside them, in parallel.
But then, all of that organic history, all of that political development, it was just violently interrupted. It set the entire continent on a new, and frankly, destructive path. And this dramatic shift all began at a conference in Berlin. 1884. Remember that year. It marks the beginning of the so-called Scramble for Africa, a pivotal moment that would permanently and artificially change the continent's political landscape forever. So in Berlin, a group of European powers got together to literally carve up Africa among themselves. With almost no regard for the reality on the ground, they just drew lines on a map, often perfectly straight lines, creating these artificial borders we still see today, completely ignoring the thousands of nations and ethnic groups that already existed.
And the attitude behind this whole process is what's really revealing. For these European powers, Africa wasn't even worth fighting over. As one source puts it, the continent's fate was decided casually, over Christmas, New Year dinner, and drinks, with people just drawing lines on a map in a distant capital.
Now, the legacy of those arbitrary lines has been decades of conflict. And yet, out of these incredible challenges, a new and uniquely African approach to diplomacy has started to emerge. It's an amazing testament to the continent's resilience and creativity.
And the scale of the challenge these new nations faced was just immense. I mean, at its independence, the entire country of Zambia had only 99 university graduates. 99. Think about that. You have to build an entire nation from scratch with almost no trained professionals to govern.
So, confronted with this almost impossible legacy, African leaders had to get innovative. During the really violent post-election crises in Kenya in 2007 and Zimbabwe in 2008, statesmen like Kofi Annan and Thabo Mbeki pioneered a brand new approach to building peace.
They moved away from the traditional Western-style winner-takes-all model. Instead, they introduced this concept of a government of inclusiveness. In this system, power isn't just concentrated in the hands of the victor. Instead, cabinet positions are actually distributed proportionally, forcing former adversaries to sit down at the same table and govern together.
This whole approach is guided by two pretty revolutionary principles. First, the safety of the population is paramount. It's more important than the outcome of an election, especially if that outcome is going to lead to civil war. And second, inclusivity and power sharing are absolutely essential if you want to build a real, sustainable peace.
So what can we all learn from this? Well, this is more than just a solution for African conflicts. It's a potential diplomatic model for a world that's struggling with political polarization and realizing the limits of its own winner-takes-all systems.
You see, this model of inclusive government isn't just some African solution for African problems. No, it directly challenges the conventional wisdom of many Western democracies about how power, opposition, and even elections are supposed to work. It kind of forces us all to reconsider our own assumptions.
And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a world that feels more and more politically polarized, what can we learn from a diplomatic approach that values the safety of its citizens over a simple partisan victory? It's a powerful idea, and it may just be one of Africa's most important contributions to global politics. Thanks for joining us.